Go enjoy it, celebrate it, spend some time with the people you love. See you in a week.
Hello, I'm Chris Cuomo. Thank you for the company. How about we talk about last night? All right? Here's the headline. The truth is enough. President Biden failed to do what he had to do. Trump was Trump. And the combination of those two men is a sad, sad reflection of a failed two-party system. We have to do better. Trump and Biden cannot be the best America has to choose from. This is a shame. You know it, and I know it. So, how do you change? Well, if you want to do better, that means changing how you do things. And anyone says, well, but you got to choose, is basically asking you to continue this sordid status quo. Beware of those people. Nothing changes if nothing changes. And this system only works for the two parties. They're the only people happy with these choices. Now, the Democrats aren't so happy right now, but there's going to be a fast fade on that. I'll explain, but let's discuss what we know. Has the state of play in this election changed because of last night? Yes. I don't care what the polls show. Yes. And I'll tell you why. Weeks ago, I suggested that there was going to be a come to Jesus for Biden if this debate went sideways. And it did. And there was. And the president's apparent answer is that he wants to stick. Am I surprised by that? Yes. Are others around him? Yes. Is it the final answer? Maybe not. Hold. Today mattered. Frankly, former President Trump, who had a great night, even though he lied all the way through unchecked, but that's the benefit of him having worked the refs. He got what he wanted. They laid back. But today he missed an opportunity. And today, Biden made his only move, which was a good move. Trump had a chance to come out today and say, look, you saw what I saw. Let's be respectful, but it's over. Let's unify. I'm for everybody. Enough with people thinking I'm out to get them and it's only about my base and MAGA this. I'm for everybody. I want to do things for everyone. I'm not on some revenge tour. He had a chance to use last night as a pivot to change tone and tune, but he didn't. He's celebrating Biden's weakness. That's okay. It is warranted. But there was an opportunity to shift in a way he needs to win, and he didn't. Biden went to North Carolina and said what many suggested he would not. I blew it because I'm old. But, and the but mattered. Do we have the SOT? If so, play it.
I know I'm not a young man. State the obvious. I don't walk as easy as I used to. I don't speak as smoothly as I used to. I don't debate as well as I used to. But I know what I do know. I know how to tell the truth. I know right from wrong. And I know how to do this job. I know how to get things done. And I know, like millions of Americans know, when you get knocked down, you get back up.
All right. Good for him. Well delivered. Couple problems, okay? First, he didn't get knocked down, okay? He tripped and fell down, all right? And that's because that's who he is. But here's what was smart about what he did today. He had to relay that he knows he messed up. Why? Because the major fear is that he doesn't get it anymore. He's out of it. He must not be in control. And this is a weak position, but it is his best position. I get it. So here's his proposition to you. A diminished me who gets what is right is better than a more energetic madman who is all about what is wrong. That's the proposition. Now, how did we get here? Well, that goes to why the debate was this early. Why was it? Was it a misplaced but proper strategy to expose that Trump was wrong about Biden and hope that the State of the Union would translate into a live event where he was being contested? Maybe, but it failed. Was it early to expose Biden as incapable in that setting so the party could make a move on him? You're hearing this, right, on social media. Look, the Democratic Party messed up, and they are to blame for this because they closed out competition. And I know he's the incumbent, but this is not the norm. Okay, it's not a normal time. But these other notions, that this was a setup, all of it sounds good, but there's nothing to it, like the idea that he's on drugs or that he's a ghost and there are other people running the government. It's all boogeymen. The truth is enough. He does hold the meetings. He is making calls. They may be bad calls, but he's making calls. He's not a ghost. The truth is the reality is what you saw. This is who Biden is. And it was only shocking to people who are in the business of taking advantage of shock, like the media, which in typical fashion went 100 miles an hour down the road of Biden being done. So, is Biden done despite his insistence to continue? The answer is we don't know today. Anyone who says they do is not to be trusted because they're guessing, and I can prove to you that they're guessing. All right? Now, the mindset of the Democrats is that last night means that there is now tremendous pressure on them to not just bring out their base, but to bring out an anti-Trump vote. And that is very hard to do, especially for Biden, and therefore it is now harder for him to win. But will it be Biden? Here is the truth. Here's how the party works, okay? There are conversations and concerns in the party today that were not there yesterday. You have the fundraisers, the institutional Democrats, mostly the unions, right? And the electeds. That is the triumvirate of influence. The money people are spooked because they don't know that they can call people and tap pockets the way they need to. They are waiting on the institutional Democrats. Will the unions go bad on Biden? Now, you saw what the CBP did. The Custom Border Patrol said, hey, we never endorsed him. Is that the unions going bad on Biden? No, that was a clarification in real time. They didn't endorse Biden, and they really didn't endorse the deal. They did it first and then read it and stepped away from it, just to be fair. The money is scared. The institutional Dems are definitely thinking about what to say to the electeds. And the electeds are Schumer and Jeffries. Those are the leaders in the Senate and the House. And they went out early today supporting Biden. This is Schumer echoing this proposition. 4 more years of democracy is better than, even if he's weak. This is the suggestion, right? He ain't, lighting it on fire, but it's better this way. Same thing with Jeffries. Now, my suggestion is they went out early to give the unions their answer before the unions come asking. I think they went out too soon. I think the unions are coming, and I think that they're going to ask for change. Now, does that mean change can happen? Can, yes, but we're in the world of possibility, not probability, from my phone calls today. Possibility, not probability. Why? Who and how? Those are their problems. Who and how? Oh, yeah, at the convention. No, way too late. Not just because of Ohio with its ballot restrictions, because I don't know that the Democrats have a chance in Ohio anyway, but who and how? These are huge questions. Easy to play with in the media. Easy to say, I hear. It's all BS. Nobody knows. I've been talking to the people who are going to be making this decision, and there is nowhere for them right now. They have no clue. But we can discuss what they're discussing, okay? Because there's no question that on social media, everybody's calling for Biden to step down. Of course they are. The editorial board of the New York Times did something that I think should really piss people off. What is a newspaper doing basically saying we need Trump to lose, so Biden's got to leave the race? So much for any question about the New York Times and whose team they're on. Who are they to say who should run? Well, I guess they do endorsements, and I guess that they do pick people. But I also think that we're reassessing everything right now. And what people want most from the media is to not pick a side. I guess at least they're being transparent. And it will pressure the conversation that the New York Times did that. So let's talk to players about what they're hearing and what they're doing about it. Democratic California Congressman, member of the Biden-Harris 2024 National Advisory Board, Ro Khanna, is the present and future of the Democratic Party. And the fact that his pretty face is on your screen right now shows that they're not in complete disarray because he'd be in hiding. Ro Khanna, thank you very much for taking the opportunity. What is your best sense of what last night did and did not mean?
Thank you, Chris. I actually thought your monologue was pretty straight up. I mean, obviously, the president didn't have a good night, but he admitted that. And he said, look, I'm old. I don't know what his advisors were thinking having a 9 p.m. debate. There are probably not many people who are in their 70s and 80s around him, but he does much better in the day. He was at a rally today, and he was honest. He said, look, Americans like a comeback. They like someone who, even if he tripped and fell down on his own, who comes back at it. And I'm going to run through the tape. I'm in this because I have a vision for this country. And I think he still has a very good chance of winning, and he's going to be in the race.
What's the chance he's not the nominee?
Well, look, no one has a crystal ball, and so I'll have humility in saying that ultimately there's only two people who are really going to make that decision, Joe Biden and Jill Biden. I mean, to the point of the New York Times, look, it's not like the journalists or Congress people got together and said, Joe Biden should be our nominee, let's put him up. But that's not the way the country works. Joe Biden won a bunch of primaries in New Hampshire and South Carolina. He won them overwhelmingly. You know what happens, Chris, with the media? Every time Donald Trump got some conviction, the media said, oh, he should drop out, and he kept winning. And every time that President Biden has some gaffe, everyone says he should drop out, but he keeps winning. And ultimately in this country, what matters is the voters. And so it's his decision.
Look, the question is, do you believe that Biden can make the case to the American people and beat Donald Trump?
I do, but I think he's got to be the Joe Biden at the rally today, not the Joe Biden at the debate. He's got to be honest. He's got to be honest that he's not as eloquent as he used to be, but his character is his eloquence. He's a simple guy, and he's an underdog. I mean, take on the Pennsylvania Rocky personality. He knows a few things. He knows right from wrong. He knows what is decent, and that's what he's offering the country. He's not pretending to be Barack Obama, Ronald Reagan, or John F. Kennedy, but this is what he's offering, and here's who he's up against. And I think if he is himself, he has a good shot to win. But if he's going to try to compete in forums where he's not as good, then I think he's setting himself up for failure.
Well, look, debating is part of the job. The fact that he's not up to it is a problem, and he isn't. And the only thing I'll push back on, Congressman, is he didn't win primaries. You guys closed out all the competition in the party. And do you look at that? You didn't make the decision, obviously, so you can have clearer eyes on it. Was that a mistake? Should you have opened up the field? I know he's the incumbent, but this is not a normal time. Should they have opened up the field so that this didn't come as a surprise to anybody, because this is who he's been for the duration?
Chris, you know the ambition of politicians. I mean, there are a lot of talented politicians on our side. They didn't defer to some DNC chair. They looked at the poll numbers and they said, Joe Biden is really well-liked among Democratic primary voters. He's really well-liked among African-American voters. I can't win this race. And by the way, Ronald Reagan, a political talent of a generation, couldn't beat Gerald Ford in a primary. Ted Kennedy couldn't beat Jimmy Carter. So they looked at this and they said, this is no way a winnable race. Now, maybe the numbers are different after the war in the Middle East, and maybe the numbers are different after the debate performance. But at the time that candidates decided not to run, it wasn't because someone told them not to run. It's because they didn't think they could win.
So you think that the talk about him being off the ticket, unless he decides to, is noise, as far as what you're hearing in-house?
My view is that there's only two people who really mattered, Joe Biden and Jill Biden, maybe right. Barack Obama. And Obama put out a very strong statement. I think the New York Times, members of Congress, all that is noise.
Ro Khanna, I appreciate you. I appreciate you coming on today, and I appreciate you making the case. You're always welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
All right, be well. So Last night, there was a moment that I thought was really interesting where the former president was making a play to Hispanics, but really black voters specifically. And he made the case that migrants are coming for black jobs, which threw me. Here's the moment.
His big kill on the black people is the millions of people that he's allowed to come in through the border. They're taking black jobs now, and it could be 18, it could be 19, and even 20 million people. They're taking black jobs.
I don't know what black jobs are. I don't know that there are such things as black jobs. But I also don't want to play the game of, oh, you're twisting it, you took it out of the context. He said it last night, and he said it again today. Listen.
The worst thing that's happening to black, number one, Hispanic, number two, unions, number three, is the millions of people pouring into our country. They're taking their jobs, and they're taking the black jobs. People that have had their jobs for a long time are losing their jobs.
All right, let's bring in the co-chair of the RNC National Convention and Trump's 2016 deputy campaign manager and friend, David Bossie. Good to see you, Bossie. Congrats on a good night last night.
How are you, buddy?
I'm doing good.
Thank you very much.
So I thought he played it well last night. He played it the way he was supposed to. I think you guys benefited from working the refs because they did not check him all night long, which certainly helps. Two questions. One, what's the play here with the black jobs? Migrants aren't taking jobs. They're filling jobs that are open. So what's the play?
So when CNN actually does a decent job, that we're getting blamed for working the refs. Look,
I'm blaming you for working the refs.
Manage that. I've worked a few refs in my time, but look, this was a great night for Donald Trump, and it was a good night for him because he did a great job. But it was a great night for him because Joe Biden showed the American people that he needs to be fired from his job. That he has been the worst president in the United States history over the last 4 years. He has wrecked our economy. He has opened our borders and created chaos and carnage across our country. We have crime that is out of control, inflation that is out of control, that his policies are personally responsible for these things. And so last night, Donald Trump stayed incredibly disciplined. He articulated what he was for, and he was able to clearly articulate whether it was talking about jobs in the economy or the border. He weaved a thread through all of those issues, how it connected directly to the American people.
Right. Look, there's no question. But again, two things can be true. He went unchecked, pretty much. You're right about that. But you say weaved a thread. I say spun a yarn. A lot of what he was saying was not true. And I believe that about the black jobs comment. Does he believe that that's how he'll get the black vote, is by making them think migrants are taking their jobs?
Well, what he's showing the American people every day is the carnage that this open southern border causes, whether it is police officers being killed in the line of duty, whether it is young women being raped and murdered across the country, whether it is the jobs that are being taken from, and you just played the clip. He's talking about blacks, he's talking about Hispanics, he's talking about unions, he's talking about every stripe of American, that Joe Biden puts foreigners, illegal immigrants, ahead of American citizens. And he did that very clearly when he was talking about veterans. It is true. Wait a second.
It's not true.
He was talking. Let me just make another.
It's not American policy to treat migrants better than veterans. Black employment is up. Black unemployment is at a record low. I mean, this is
veterans out of. He kicks veterans out of hospitals. It is well documented that you guys have done stories on these things where veterans have been removed from hotels because the Department of Homeland Security comes in and buys the entire hotel. So you have illegal immigrants living lavishly in hotels across America, and you have American citizens, veterans, out on the street. That's a fact. That's not that's not conjecture, and that's not made up.
Dave, it's not that it's a fact. It's about the context of the fact. Just because one correlates with the other, it doesn't mean that one is caused by the other. It's not that they pulled out veterans and put in migrants. Look, the truth is enough, Dave, and you win on immigration. You win on the southern border because Biden allowed it to languish. And he's got a problem with that. And the bigger problem is whether or not he can make the case.
If I could...
Go ahead, and then I got one more thing for you. Go ahead.
Second, and because you're right. He didn't allow it to languish. What he did was he came in and he undid everything President Trump did on the southern border. With executive orders, he reversed all of the security. He stopped building the wall. He damaged our southern border irreparably. And it's going to take somebody like President Trump who is going to re-secure our border. That's the look, we have a few things that President Trump can do incredibly quickly. One, secure the border. That is going to create a lot of security across this country, number one. Number two is he's going to let America become energy independent again, which is going to drive down inflation very quickly. And those are the things that can impact Americans and the American people very quickly. And that's what he's running on. And that's why Joe Biden's been the worst president in American history.
Listen, I hear the case. Just to be clear, if it's irreparable damage, then there's nothing Trump could do to fix it. So it's not irreparable. It can get much better than it is. His problem is Trump's got to start telling people how. He got away with it last night. He's not going to get away with it for the duration. And all this talk about Biden leaving the ticket, you better hope he doesn't, Dave Bossy. You better hope it stays Biden if you want to win. I got to jump, but we'll keep talking about this all the way through. I wish you a good weekend. And congratulations on last night.
You too,
You guys got a big win last night.
Thanks very much.
Take care. Dave Bossy.
Appreciate
4 minutes, 5 seconds. By the way, hey, stop saying they didn't have a good night. They had a good night. Trump had a good night. It's okay. The truth is enough. He's got problems. He's a pathological liar with how he makes the case, and you should be pushing to hear how he's going to do any of these things. But he had a good night. Now, what if it isn't Biden? We have to discuss that. I think it's irresponsible not to. A name that I think you should be hearing is Maryland Governor Wes Moore. If you don't know much about him, it's a Google away, but nobody makes the case as well as he does. He is not here to campaign for president, but we're going to discuss what this country needs with the governor next. And then you have a star in the making in Wes Moore. I think you put Wes Moore in there. Yes, he's not known to the country, but man, would they like him. They'd like him fast. Governor Wes Moore of Maryland is a combat vet in his prime, small business owner, best-selling author, and, of course, a Democrat who might be able to beat Trump. Earlier this year, you were introduced to him when he managed his state through this deadly Maryland bridge disaster. You remember that. The governor joins us now. It's good to see you, sir.
It's great to see you, sir. Good evening.
And I told them, Governor, before I went to break, you are not here to campaign. You are not here to do any of that. You will fight me and evade all my questions about it. But I told them. So we're here under no false pretenses. So why did it matter for you as a Democrat leader to hear the president acknowledge today that he did not get it done last night and that he is not who he was?
Well, I'm going to be honest. It didn't matter as a Democrat because I don't think it's political. I think it was honest. He didn't have a great night. And I think that anyone who would argue that he did is not telling you the truth. And so I respect the fact that the president came out today and said, that was not his best pitch. And I get that. And it's true. I also know that while the president did not have a great night, really what's contrasted is the fact that Donald Trump did not have a great presidency. And that is the dynamic that I think really that the voters are going to have to wrestle with and struggle with. The president knows that we're going to have to go out and continue making the case, continue making the argument as to why another 4 years is going to be so important for the country. And at the same time, why another 4 years for Donald Trump would be so problematic for the future of America.
Do you believe that Joe Biden can serve for 4 years competently?
I do. And I'm going to be honest with you, Chris. I mean, I wouldn't be supporting the president in the way that I am if I did not believe that. You know, I look at what we've been able to get done just in the first 18 months in Maryland since I've been the governor. We're now having record low unemployment in the state of Maryland, despite when I was inaugurated, Maryland was 43rd in the country in unemployment. You know, when I first came on board, we were having 8 straight years of where we watched the homicide rate nearly double in the state of Maryland. Baltimore City was at 300 homicides for 8 straight years under my predecessor. And in the first 18 months that I've been on board, we've been able to drop the homicide rate in Baltimore by over half, having the fastest drop of any major American city in this country, with the exception of one. And now the homicide rate in Baltimore, the last time it was this low, I was not born yet. The reason I bring that up is we're doing it in partnership with President Biden and the Biden-Harris administration. And so the reason that I'm so supportive of them is not only do I know that he will be able to serve another 4 years, I'm excited about what we can actually get done as a state if I have the chance to continue partnering with the president for the next 4 years.
If the president decides it's not for him and he steps away, would you be open to being active in the competition to see who replaces him?
The president's not going to step away. I think we saw today.
I said if.
The president's not going to step away. He's not going to.
I said if.
And I encourage him not to even consider it.
Oh, he's considering. I would
encourage the president not to even consider it.
Would you know, Tim Russert, may he rest in peace, love this dialogue, but if they came to you and said, can we consider you? Biden wants to step away. Would you allow yourself to be considered?
Chris, the thing that there's 2 things that I know. One is I not only love my job, I have the best job. The second thing that I know is one of the reasons that I love the job so much is because I have such a great partner in President Biden inside this role. I mean, and think about it, and I'm being serious here, right? You look at what he did the day after the debate. What did he do the day after the debate? We made an announcement that the White House is now working with Congress to make sure that we can get a 100% cost share on the ability to rebuild the Francis Scott Key Bridge with speed and with efficacy, because as I've said to people of my state and to the people of this country, one, we are going to make sure that we are going to rebuild this bridge and not have it just be with taxpayer dollars, that this is something between the insurance and the potentially pending litigation is going to more than make the American people whole, but we need to get this bridge financing in order to get moving and get it done on time and on budget. The president is the one helping to lead and to push that. And so that's why it's so important and why not only is he going to be the nominee, but I'm excited to support him.
I get it, but I had to ask, and you had to dodge, but that's okay, Gov. I understand it, and I respect it. Cannabis Workforce Development Program. When people hear that, they're like, is this another lefty who's soft on drugs? Now, that's gotten a little tired as an idea, but what do you want people to know about why this makes a difference of bringing people back into society?
It makes a difference because now we have 38 states that have done some form of either legalization or decriminalization of cannabis. I look in the state of Maryland. We had it as a referendum on our ballot in 2022. And Chris, I ended up winning with 65% of the vote, so a pretty significant margin in my state. Do you know the only thing that beat me was the referendum on cannabis, which got 70% of the vote. Our state voted overwhelmingly to be able to have a legalized recreational cannabis market. And I've been very proud of the rollout that the state of Maryland has had, which has been effective and equitable and arguably the most effective in the country. Yet at the same time, we had people who, because of misdemeanor cannabis convictions, still weren't able to get barber's licenses or still weren't able to get government contracts or small business loans. That's not fair to continue to punish people for something that is now completely legal and a multi-billion-dollar industry. And listen, you know me. I mean, I'm focused on jobs. I want economic growth. I want to make sure that we can create pathways for work and wages and wealth for all members of our community and society, and not just some. And when you have people who continue to have these barriers, and frankly these antiquated barriers that continue to keep them from entering into the workforce, you're not just hurting them and their families, you're hurting our economic growth. I want people working, and I want to incentivize people to work, and I want to remove the barriers that's keeping them from being able to enter into the workforce.
Yeah, and look, it's disproportionate with income, it's disproportionate with race, and it is also to address a yawning gap in our trade population. We need workers. Governor Moore, right. I appreciate you making the case. You are always welcome here to do so.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
All right, Gov, we'll speak again. We're going to take a break, 4 minutes, 30 seconds. I told you. I told you. Now, you got to get into what the policies would be. You got to see it. But I'm telling you, we have greatness in this country. We have leaders. We should not be stuck with the choices that you're stuck with right now. Last week, the state of Louisiana did something that showed the need for leadership. Remember the 10 commandments have to be in all the public schools? Is that legal? Oklahoma quickly followed suit, and they took it a step further. The school superintendent announced the Bible must be taught in public schools. How is this justified? We have the superintendent of Oklahoma schools and a lawyer, Professor Alan Dershowitz. Two takes next.
Teacher, every classroom in the state will have a Bible in the classroom, and will be teaching from the Bible in the classroom to ensure that this historical understanding is there for every student in the state of Oklahoma in accordance with our academic standards and state law.
Now, as inflammatory as that is for some people, the last phrase of what was said there, historical, is going to be the key to passing a test of constitutionality. Oklahoma also adopted that you have to have the 10 commandments everywhere as well. That also will have to go through this test, and it is not easy to pass it because the suggestion of religious indoctrination is so strong. So the mandate here, effective immediately, is going to raise red flags, especially after what happened with Louisiana. And this seems to be a trend towards what some fear is an implementation of Christian doctrinization. Is it? I don't know. Let's bring in Ryan Walters, the superintendent, to make his case. And we also have Harvard Law professor and constitutional scholar Alan Dershowitz, who understands the lines. First of all, sir, thank you for taking the opportunity. I appreciate you doing so. Why is this okay, meaning it is not to indoctrinate people to Christianity, but you believe it is part of a balanced curriculum?
Yes, sir. You know, the process for us started over a year ago where we looked at academic standards and we asked the public and several task force, what's missing here? And they said, well, listen, you know, when we're talking about American history and you don't have direct references towards where did Thomas Jefferson come up with endowed by our creator, what was he referencing there? When you talk about Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter from a Birmingham jail and he's talking about Bible stories, and yet, you know, you're not saying anything about their belief system, Mayflower Compact, et cetera. We knew that we needed to include the Bible directly into the classroom so that kids understood the full historical context of its role in American history. And that has been the document that was under attack by the left. It had been removed from classrooms. And we're saying, listen, we're proud to be the first state to bring it back in a historical context so our kids can have a full understanding of American history.
Why not also include the Torah, where so much of the ethics and morality in the Bible come from, if you want to teach the proper context?
Great question. So we do include all of the other religious texts as well. But Chris, the thing that has come under attack is the Bible. The Bible is the document that the teachers' unions and left-wing activists have had removed from the classroom. We've had multiple threats of lawsuits here in Oklahoma. So they had taken them off the shelves. We're telling them, guys, the Bible has proven to have secular value in its historical context in American history. It has to be included. We're not seeing the left come after these other documents. We allow a lot of other documents in the classroom. It's not exclusive to the Bible, but the Bible is the one that has been under attack and has been removed, and we feel it's essential to get it back in the classroom.
Professor, what is the bar, and do you think this will get over it in terms of being a constitutional implementation?
Well, I hope not, but I can't be sure with the current Supreme Court. Let's remember that if you go back to the history and you quote Thomas Jefferson, you have to quote him in full. Thomas Jefferson was virulently anti-Catholic. He and Adams agreed upon very little, but they agreed that no country that allowed Catholics into the country or Jesuits into the country could ever be a free country. This country was not founded on Christianity. It was founded on Protestantism, anti-Catholicism. In some jurisdictions, people couldn't vote unless they were Protestant. So let's tell the truth about the history. The history was not the history of Christianity or even Judeo-Christianity. It included virulent anti-Catholic bigotry. Are we going to teach that? Are we going to teach the parts of the Bible that justify slavery, that justify treating women as second-class citizens? Or are we going to be selective in what we pick? Or which Bible will we use? The Douay version, which is the official Catholic version, which has been banned by parts of the United States? Will it be the King James version? Will it be the Jewish Publication Society version? Will it include the Quran? Will it include other religious texts and religious books? Will it include atheist tracts, arguments against the existence of God? Are we going to let the students really make decisions? Are we really going to further divide the country along religious lines? We're so divided today. Do we want even greater division? I hope the Supreme Court agrees with that and strikes down any statute or any rule that requires the Bible or the Ten Commandments. Look, I love the Bible. Love most of the Ten Commandments, not all of them, but I love most of the Ten Commandments. Remember that the first four are all religious. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord in vain. God damn it, don't. No, why should we be teaching our students about not taking the name of the Lord in vain? Or I am the God who took you out of Egypt. Yeah, don't kill. Even that's a debate, because the word in Hebrew is lo tirtzach, do not murder. But one version of the Bible says do not kill. Another version says do not murder. We're going to just have fight after fight after fight.
I get it. I get the argument, but let's give the superintendent the last word here. Superintendent, respond, please.
Absolutely. That's the most absurd argument I've ever heard. You're going to go back and say that we can't talk about references to biblical text in American history. We can't explain to students why Martin Luther King Jr. referenced the Ten Commandments in the Civil Rights Movement and talked about biblical examples in his letter from a Birmingham jail because he's wanting to take this into a theological argument. It's not a theological argument, Professor. This is an argument about history and people in our history who have referenced the Bible and them in their own words claimed it motivated them. Absolutely, our students should understand that. Absolutely, our students should understand the historical context of the founding of our country. So you're wanting to censor American history by not including the faith of the people in our past. That's absurd. Our students have the intelligence to understand why people made decisions in this country, and it played a crucial role in American history. I know you're trying to talk over me here, but it's really clear. Our history, the founders were clear. People throughout our history were clear that Christianity played a role in their decision making. Our kids need to understand that very clearly.
Quickly, because I got to go,
Christianity.
Professor.
The founding fathers, Catholic.
Understood. Superintendent, thank you. This is going to continue. It's going to be litigated in all likelihood. You are welcome here for the duration, Ryan Walters, to make the case as we go through, okay? You'll get a fair shot. And, Professor, thank you for the counter, as always. Thank you for the benefit to the audience. 3 minutes, 45 seconds. Up next, I think I have time for calls. 844-968-7720. Let's get after it. Hey, you know, NewsNation had one of its biggest nights last night, and a big reason for it is the other part of your screen right now. Dusty masterminds our special coverage. She books like 1,500 hours of television, works with all these different anchors. She and the team did a really good job with a lot fewer people than most of the big organizations do it with. So, well done, guys. I'm glad it paid off, that people paid attention. So who do you got?
I want to say that Chris's reaction, and I'm not good with social media, but your reaction on TikTok, like quadrupled, your reaction to the debate on TikTok quadrupled CNN, ABC, NBC, all these biggies. So we're super proud of you here, honestly.
Well, listen, we're just saying the right thing, which is this is embarrassing that these are our choices. America's got to do better. This only benefits the parties, and people get it. It's just what we're going to do about it, and that's the hard part. So who do you got on the phone?
Okay, let's get to Steve from Las Vegas.
Steve Salerno is a journalist and a mentor of mine, and I wanted him to call in with some perspective tonight. What do you got, brother?
Chris, first of all, I want to applaud you for your in-passing barb at the Times editorial board. And to play off your last segment, I want to thank you more generally for being an apostle of honest journalism. Can I add my 2 cents?
Please.
Yeah, newspapers have always endorsed candidates, of course, but I'm more concerned about the way they couch this. This is a battle for the soul of the nation, which is why Biden needs to step aside. Can any reader reading that and the rest of their rhetoric reasonably expect the Times to use impartial coverage for the balance of the campaign? And last thing, suppose the Dems do heed the Times advice and they pick a replacement for Joe. Are we then supposed to assume that the replacement is somehow the great savior and the Messiah? At a time when trust in journalism is an all-time low, I just think this is a terrible development. That's all.
I understand why you feel that way. You make a very cogent argument. I'm not a mainline defender of the New York Times. I do think that we are in an existential battle in terms of understanding who we are and what we want to be about, but that doesn't mean you pick a side other than the side of getting to a better place. I think your questions are valid, and I think that they shouldn't have done it the way they did it. But most importantly, it's good that they are at least now on record and transparent. I think that the time of keeping our opinions to ourselves, the audience doesn't buy it anymore. They want to know where you stand so they can gauge your degree of fairness. I know it's sticky and tricky, and you and I will have 100 discussions about it, but you're asking the right questions, and I think it's a red flag for sure. All right, let's do one more if we have time.
Okay, one more, Philip from Fresno. You got a minute.
Chris,
What's your question,
I was
sir?
I was told to make it really quick, so I had an idea for the next debate. You know, these guys spent half their time talking last night about the other guy, and I was wondering, what do you think of the idea of when the moderators ask these guys questions to tell them that they want to know what you're going to do for the country, what you did before for the country, and not bring up the other guy's name. There's no need to bring up the other guy's name. And I think it wasted too much time.
Can't enforce it. Can't enforce it. There's too much value in attacking the other in a binary battle to the bottom. That's zero sum. It's just too appealing. It's too easy. It's too effective. So I think you got to have more debates, mandated, single issue, no moderator. And you judge. You're an adult. You have the power, right? I mean, you do it everywhere else in your life. If there's one thing that's true about the Americans in general, we are not suckers, okay? You don't need to have your hand held. You don't need a referee of your own priorities. I really believe the time has come. Make them debate more, single topic, get after it, and you be the judge. All right? Thank you for giving us the opportunity. I appreciate you. We'll get through it, but we'll get through it together. Dan Abrams, right after a quick break.